Hello, hello. Welcome to this amazing webinar. Today's webinar is childhood eating patterns are running your life, how to finally be the driver of your own life, okay? So if you feel like food is driving you, you feel out of control around food, you feel like no matter how hard you try, no matter how many things you've done, you still feel like you're not getting the kind of results that you want in your life with the food, then this webinar is for you. My name is Dara Tomasson, and I absolutely love helping women realize that it's not that they aren't smart enough. It's just that they to lose weight or to finish all the projects or to save more money or not to buffer. A lot of us just think we need more willpower, but really it's a lot different than what we think. So I'm really happy you're here. And as a life coach who's helped hundreds and if not thousands of women, I just know that when you finally figure out what I'm going to be teaching you today, it's going to make so much sense why you've come across this. I know what I should be doing, but I don't always do it, this dilemma, and I'm here to help you with all of that. We're going to really focus on how when we were a kid, why those patterns that we developed as a kid are still sabotaging us today. And it's so frustrating and it's so discouraging because we're grown adults. We can do all sorts of amazing things, yet it feels like food just has so much control of us. Why do you reach for food when you're not hungry? Why do you think that happens? So as you think about this, I want you to know that why you reach for food when you're not hungry, it's not a discipline problem. So when you turn to the food, that gives you a break. Kind of like when you go on Instagram or social media, it's like a reprieve. Or maybe when you binge watch a show, or when you go shopping or something. It's like a way for you to distract yourself from those everyday issues. So the truth is, your eating patterns didn't start last year. They started in childhood. So your brain was learning before you even realized it. So the good news is your brain is not broken. Your brain is well trained. So anything learned can be relearned. So we have the famous story of Pavlov, and he trained the dogs to, every time they heard a bell, they realized that they were going to eat. So eventually it just got automatic that heard the bell, started to salivate, right? Because they're like, oh, pardon me, this is going to be eating time, right? And so we have done the same thing for ourselves. It's like, I'm uncomfortable, I'm going to go distract myself with food. Or I'm uncertain, or I am feeling whatever that is, I'm going to go get some food. I'm going to go scroll, or I'm going to go and shop, do some online shopping, or YouTube or Pinterest or something like that that's going to take us away from what's really happening. So your brain is a pattern making machine. So when something solves a problem, your brain stores it, then repeats it automatically, okay? So your brain is like a car on a dirt road. And so the more that you go on that dirt road and the more that you drive that way, what happens? It starts creating a rut. So we have created these ruts in our brain. So it's like uncomfortable, go eat. Dissatisfied, go find some food. Nervous about something, watch Instagram. Okay? So we have created these unhealthy ruts. Now, your brain is wired. We have several different parts of our brain. We have our higher brain, which is the CEO brain. It's the one that helps us to be the most effective, to be the most efficient. It's able to think about our thinking, okay? But we also have what's called the lower brain, or the safety brain. And it's kind of like the security guard that's constantly looking for danger. I often think about it as a mother deer, when she takes her little her fawn out in the middle of the field, they're more exposed, right? They have a lot more dangers. So that mama deer, she is just constantly on guard, watching for potential problems. So our lower brain is 5 times more active, more sensitive to threats than positive experiences. Okay. So if there was a grizzly bear or rainbow outside your door, clearly and thankfully, your lower brain is saying, don't go outside. This is really dangerous. Even though the rainbow's beautiful, or even though the flowers are beautiful, the sun is out, this is actually really dangerous. All right. So safety always wins. So how does that relate to food? So food represents survival. Food represents comfort. Food represents predictability. Okay, so that combination is really powerful. Now, this is something that I've learned that's really, really helpful for my brain, because we have such a dilemma. And this is one of the purposes of today's webinar. We know what we should eat, yet we're not always following through. And it feels so discouraging. It feels so frustrating. It's like, how can I be so smart, but yet I still am eating when I know I'm not hungry? I'm still turning to the food, okay? So this is one of the biggest myths I want to help. One of the biggest problems that I want to solve for people is that you're not, the knowing and the doing that is not because you're not smart enough. It's because you haven't learned how your brain and body work together. And that is my mission, is to help women. So when we think about this, and those are really good comments, and it's like, it's nurturing, it's comforting, it's a way for me to kind of get through the day. So our body is wired to, when we get food, our body gives us a dopamine release, because it's reinforcing behavior. Because back in the day, when it was dangerous to leave the cave to go hunting, or to send the men off to go, in the woods, and who knew if they were going to come back alive, or who knew if they were going to come back with any food for you. We learned, so then that meant we might have to, if food was really scarce, it meant that we would have to sometimes eat stuff that wasn't that great. Like we'd have to eat, herbs or plants, or even insects, right? If we were really starving. So there's this response, this dopamine release when we eat, because it's saying this was a good thing. Even though you might not like it, it's really important that you eat this thing. Okay, so I'm talking about like way, way back. But now our food it's really, really changed. It has a lot of sugar and flour and addictive qualities. And even if you don't eat all of that, it also, any sort of food is just you get this response saying, good job, way to go. So you take that now, so we get a dopamine release when we eat food. But then now we're eating food that's like super sugary, super flour, like they call them actually designer foods, because there's like ingredients that we don't even understand what they are. And they are meant to keep us addicted. They're meant for us to keep eating them. Okay. So I do like to, sometimes I'll explain that when cigarette companies started taking a hit because of all the research that they found of how bad cigarettes were, guess who bought General Foods and Nabisco? The cigarette companies. And guess what we didn't have before? We didn't have snack bars. We didn't have all those foods with all of those crazy ingredients in them. Okay? So they have created this addiction cycle. And because our body already has a dopamine release every time we eat, it's kind of like a double whammy. All right? And so this is why I always say it's not because you aren't smart enough. You just haven't learned what's really going on behind the scenes. And the more that you can understand how your brain and your body work together, the more we can have traction. Because the other part that's so hard, and actually I watched a really good TED Talk this morning from, what's her name? Trisha Nelson. And she helps people with emotional eating. And one of the things that she talked about, which is so, it seems so obvious, but we don't always realize it. It's like, we need food. Whereas with alcohol or pornography or drugs, like those are all things that we can just stop cold turkey, even smoking or like whatever that is. But we actually always need food. So having that understanding of what to do with that, and she suggests 3 things. The importance of looking at why are you turning to the food, and then reducing your own stress, because a lot of us who overeat, we're people pleasers because we want to be, and this is why the emotional childhood, I'm going to bring that up again. So, and then also a supportive community. So I'm going to be talking about those 3 things. So let's go back a minute. I kind of got ahead of myself. So this food is powerful to our brain. So we need food to survive. We need food for comfort, and we need food for predictability, right? That's what food represents. Now, when we were children, we needed to learn how to survive in our home, whatever our home looked like. And so in order to survive, we were paying really close attention to the messages that were given to us about food. What were you told about food at the dinner table? Who was the finish the plate? You have to finish everything that you're given. What about even if you're not hungry, you have to eat everything I tell you. So don't listen to your own intuition. Eat everything I tell you to eat. And if you don't eat it, children are starving in other places. And so you should be grateful. And the thing with the people pleaser, which we're going to talk about a little bit more, is when we lack self-esteem, when we don't feel like we belong, when we don't feel that everything is good, then we need to overcompensate. We need to make sure that we're following the rules, okay? So belonging and being a part of this family is actually crucial, because if we don't follow the rules, then we will be sent out into the streets, and then who's going to take care of us? Because we can't take care of ourselves when we're little. Okay? So I have this analogy that I was thinking about. So our relationship with food is like the ocean. There are a couple of layers, okay? So think about if we go to the ocean, all right? Like, okay, you can there's 3 different levels. There's I'm just going to sit on the beach and take everything in. And that's lovely. And that's a wonderful trip to the ocean. Or the second level is I'm going to go in the water. I'm going to go in the water. I'm going to cool down. I'm going to feel the water on my body. Maybe I'll do a little bit of floating. And that's another level. But then there's the third level. This is the level my kids love to do. I live on Vancouver Island. Has anyone ever been here? Have you been to Vancouver Island? It's so beautiful. But this is the one that they love to do. And sometimes I love to do it too. Is when I get the goggles. And I get the, oh my goodness. I put in my snorkel and I go deep and I explore and I find things. I find crabs and jellyfish and all sorts of different fish. Okay. So these are 3 different levels. So I'm going to bring that together. So let's look at layer 1, childhood food rules. So this is the message that you learned from children as a childhood, right? So it's like, finish your plate, don't waste food, eat what I give you, it's time to eat, other children are starving. So food rules everywhere. Then what your brain learned was food equals survival and rules equal safety. So following the rules meant that you felt safe. Okay? So then what happened was the pattern was created, I should eat when I'm told, not I can trust my body. So then compliance became automatic. So many women carry guilt around food, even when they aren't hungry. Okay. Now we're going to go. So that's just like we're sitting on the beach and we realize, oh, yeah, Dara, that makes sense. And you could just learn that and you could just say, thank you, Dara. Thank you for that information. I'll take that into consideration. And that would be fine. But now we're going to go into the ocean. We're going to go into the water. And we're going to start getting a little bit wet. So let's look at how food became emotional support for you. So your food helped you when you feel sad, lonely, bored, overwhelmed. Okay, so in the chat, what are your go-to foods when you're sad? What is it you do when you feel sad? What food do you go and get? Do you go do some baking? Do you make chocolate chip cookies? When you're sad, do you go in the car and get yourself a treat? All right, so what about when you're excited or you're celebrating? What is the food that you love to eat? And what food just screams, we're celebrating? Okay, what about the food that you eat when you're lonely? Isn't it interesting to think about how am I using food to try to feel a certain emotion? So I just want you to ponder that. And because right now we're in the water, right? We're just in the water. We're learning some more. We're getting a little deeper. So this then means I can't trust myself with food, or I need experts to tell me what to eat, or food has just always been there. Okay, so we're getting a little bit more clear on why we know what we should eat, but we don't always follow through. Because as a child, there was the message, if you don't eat, if you don't follow the rules, if you don't do what I say, you will be kicked out. So then we have this we have this neuro pathway, like the rut in the road of if I don't do what they say, I will be in trouble. I could be kicked out. This is life-threatening, okay? So this, and our brains, I talked about earlier, our brains are really efficient. They look for patterns. So right now, I have 4 sons and 1 daughter. This is my 4th child who's learning to drive. And he's this big 6'5" kid, and he's been in a car his whole life. But when he first started to drive, it was like frightening. It was awful. And now he's getting better and better and better because he's learning the patterns. Okay. It's great. Our brains are really good at looking at patterns and automating things. However, if it was a negative pattern, it now is a negative habit. So we have to look at this, and that's why we're going into the water. Okay. So then the brain starts creating shortcuts. So when I'm sad, I go to chocolate. When I'm bored, I go to popcorn. When I'm overwhelmed, I go in the kitchen to the pantry, or I do some baking, or whatever that is. So then your brain is solving problems. So now every repetition tightens that pattern, right? So have you ever played tetherball? So tetherball is like a big pole, and it's usually in a playground, and it has a rope, and there's a ball at the end, okay? Who's played tetherball before? Put it in the chat. Yeah, okay, so Anne's played tetherball, right? And so how does tetherball have anything to do with our eating habits? I want you to think about it. No matter how you hit it, it's always attached. It can go in all different directions, but it's always anchored. So every repetition, every time we turn to chocolate when we're sad, what are we doing? Remember when I talked about a dopamine hit? We get a dopamine hit from just the body saying, thank you for eating. But then when we have the added sugar, refined flour, refined sugar, whatever that is, now we're creating a pattern. And then to add the third layer, our our brain is now creating that pattern where this is what we need to have, but it down regulates. So we need to have more sugar to get more of a hit. So just like with drug addicts, the first time they smoke or do drugs, whatever, they can get a hit. But because they downregulate that and the brain says, oh, we need more and more of it to get more of a hit, it's the same thing with sugar. It's the same thing with cookies. Because we have that resistance and we need more and more of it. So I'm curious for you, how often are you using food to try to feel a different way? Okay, so now we're going to look at the third layer. Now we're like going deep. We're going into the brain. We're going into the water. We're looking, we're searching, we're submersing ourselves. So this is where we start looking at what are our habitual patterns nightly. Okay, that's awesome. So good to be aware. So how often are you're thinking about food constantly? You're second guessing yourself. You're feeling like you can't trust yourself. Your weight affects your self-worth. Food becomes, like we talked about, a mental noise. So when you don't know how to take care of yourself, food fills the gap. Not because you're weak. All right, so I want you to ask yourself, are you satisfied with your eating patterns? So do you ever eat in secret? Does your weight affect how you feel about yourself? And does food dominate your thoughts? So I have, there is a link that I wanted to share. It's a little test that you can do to just kind of, it's like a screening, of seeing like, where are you in your understanding of, here, I have these little tests. So I am a life coach and I help women with their weight loss. Oh, I should have done this separately. Sorry. So this is an eating disorder test. And it's just helpful to guide. And I'm working on my master's degree right now. And I'm working on, I have one class, my first class that I'm taking is called Addictions. It's called Addictions. It's an addictions class. And it's learning to see where we are. And so this is so funny. The other day I did like a little screening test like this with cell phone use. And I have to say, I use my phone a little bit more than I'd want to. Okay. So I want you to use these with, you can just decide if you want to use it or not. But if you are verging on an unhealthy pattern of food, then it's just a good piece of awareness. There's nothing wrong with you. We just have some patterns that aren't helpful. And you know how we say, like, when the more you know, the better. And Maya Angelou says, the better you know, the more you know, the better you can do. So and there's even one that's very simple. It's called the scoff. Do you make yourself sick because you feel uncomfortably full? Do you worry that you have lost control over how much you eat? Have you recently lost more than 14 pounds in a 3-month period? Do you believe yourself to be fat when others say you are thin? And would you say that food dominates your life? Okay. So that is I just thought it would be prudent to talk about that here because one of my biggest beliefs is we have to take the shame out of weight loss. We have to take the shame out of the way that we're thinking and the way that we're talking to ourselves. And so I think of shame like mushrooms. Mushrooms grow in the dark and they feed off of poop. They feed off of like the bottom of the, like all of the rotting stuff in the forest, the dying trees. And so the more that we can shed light on where we are at, the more that we can actually take action and change. So myself, I used food. My mom and dad got a divorce when I was 20. Well, they separated when I was like 2021, and it was crazy. I come from a very Christian family. We talk all about eternal families, and my parents, on the outside, no one would guess they had any marital problems. They went on date nights. We had family prayers. We did scripture study regularly, and but behind the doors, they were never really happy, and so it was devastating to me. And one of the ways that I coped was I overate. So at dinner time, I would, instead of eating, a regular portion, I would eat two or three. And so I would leave the table feeling more full, but really what I was doing was I was trying to quiet the food noise, or the emotions, sorry. All of the emotions, all of the sadness. So the more that you fill yourself up, just kind of like with this cup, the more that I put liquid in this, I fill it up more, and so I don't have to feel as much. And that's the same thing with food. So there's only two reasons we're overweight: over hunger, which means like what I did was just eating more often than I need, and some of you have mentioned that about throughout the day you are always checking in and eating. So that's a way for you to avoid, resist, or react to things that aren't going well in your life. And then the other reason we're overweight is over desire, which is going for the chocolate, going for the ice cream, and all those treats, because we're trying to get a feeling from eating. Okay. So it would be interesting for you to do those tests. And I should have saved that YouTube, but it's Trisha Nelson, and she talked about how when we are using food to be a painkiller, when we're using food to be an escape, or if we're using food as a punishment, then that is an unhealthy way of using food. Then she talked about the importance of self-care. My program is called Love Yourself Thin. So it's a way of believing in yourself instead of being an overachiever or a people pleaser. So then you exhaust yourself doing everything for everyone else, and then you start feeling resentful. And that's a terrible cycle. That can happen with perfectionism. It also can happen with procrastination. Those were all survival strategies as children. So we need to work on not doing those things and learning how to have more rest and self-care and positive self-talk. And then she talked about the importance of having a supportive group, which I'm actually going to be talking about moving into now, as we look into how do you get that support? How do you change? She said, because at our higher brain, changes can only happen when our higher brain notices the pattern, interrupts those patterns, and creates new ones. That's when we create those new healthy habits. Okay, so this is where I'm going to talk to you about why life coaching with a weight loss perspective is going to be so helpful. Because diets don't ever solve these emotional issues. And so diets just focus on what to eat, when to eat, and how to eat it. But your struggle is about why you're eating. Different problem, different solution. So what actually changes the pattern? You must learn to understand your brain, to separate your emotions from eating, and to build self-trust again. This is a skill set. And this is what I learned working with a life coach. So when I started working with a life coach, it was to help build my quilting business. And as I understood about the role of food and why there's only two reasons why we're overweight, it finally dawned on me that I was totally approaching weight loss in the wrong way. And I was using a lot of the fear and the trying to have connection that I had as a child to food as an adult, and it wasn't working, right? I was just looking at the surface. I wasn't going deep into why. I'm a smart person. I have a university degree. I was a school teacher. I have 5 children. Like I had a successful quilting business. It's like, why is food this problem for me? Okay. So this is the work I do with women. I help women understand their food patterns, rewire emotional eating, and build self-trust with themselves. So basically I take all the food rules and guilt out. So imagine this. Food is just food. It's not noise. It's not guilt. It's not a daily battle. It's just freedom. So if you're interested in that, I wanted to talk to you about my program. So my program is for, so inside my program, we learn to rewire emotional eating. We rebuild trust with our food, and we stop food obsession. And you get this step-by-step support. So my program is for women who feel stuck in food patterns. They want peace with food, and they are ready to understand their brain. So it's definitely not another diet. If you know what you should do, but you can't figure out why you keep falling short, it's the dilemma, isn't it? You have all the knowledge, you know the steps, but something keeps you from following through. That's exactly what we resolve in Love Yourself Thin, my lifetime membership for quilters and creatives, because you don't have a knowledge problem, you have a thinking problem, and that's what we're here to solve. When you join Love Yourself Thin, you get lifetime access to the tools to help you understand why you do what you do, so you can finally create permanent weight loss. No more frustration, no more wondering what's wrong with you, just real transformation from the inside out. You can learn more and join at www.daratomasson.com. This is where the real work happens. Can't wait to see you there.